Welcome back to another Talk Let's conversation. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever tried to help someone? Have you ever tried doing a good deed for someone and it backfired on you? I think we all can relate to this because we all try to solve problems, if you will. We all try to render aid. We all try to fix other people's issues. And when you think about it, they're not even asking you to fix anything. They're just asking you to listen. I think most husbands can relate to this, especially our wives, when they're just trying to de-stress. They're just trying to vent, just let off some steam. And they tell us something and we try to fix it right away. We're coming in to rescue the day. All they were asking for was for you just to listen. I think we've lost the art of listening. We love trying to fix. And so we find ourselves being Mr. and Mrs. Fix It. You give us a problem, we're going to try to fix it. We're not just listening. We're looking and we're thinking of how to solve it for you. I worked at a company called DART for over 30 years in operations, and I found myself defending, if you will, my employees on a consistent basis. I found myself defending the contractors as well and their employees on a consistent basis. I even found myself defending the riders. Customers are always right. But I found myself defending them as well on a daily basis. And it did something to me. It gave me a thick skin. As a matter of fact, it made me almost like a lawyer, like an attorney, always defending someone, always standing up, always looking out for those who some would say was disenfranchised, some who couldn't speak up for themselves. That was me. I was that guy who was kind of pushed into a position. Not that I asked for it, but we've been told that your gift will make room for you. And I feel that my gift made room for me. My job really was just to simply fix it. And you say, ask, what fix it? What is it? Well, it is fix it before anyone knew that something was broken. That's what I was tasked with doing. Yeah. Make sure it didn't get up to or get elevated to the upper management team. And that's a tough thing to do because, let's be for real, when you're dealing with humans, there's always going to be something that's broken. There's always going to be something that you can't repair. My mentor, who at the time was the chief operating officer, the executive vice president, we were sitting down having this conversation about work issues. And in the middle of the conversation, he decides to tell me that a mutual friend of ours, that he was no longer talking to him, that they had a disagreement. Now, he didn't go into all the details. He just let me know that he had cut him off. And so I realized that that had to be something pretty bad for him to just cut someone off completely. So weeks later, I decided to have a conversation with this mutual friend. I'm trying to mend broken fences. I told you, we have this ability, if you will, or we think we do, to fix everything. And so I had this conversation with this mutual friend, and I could tell right away he was irritated when I brought up my mentor's name. And I could tell he was bugging out, and so he didn't want anything to do with the conversation. And so I decided to let it go because I realized that this was deep. And so weeks later, my mentor calls me into his office, his administrative assistant. She calls me and says, your boss wants you to come over. And so I did. And that was cool because, we normally kick it around a little bit. And so it's nothing out of the ordinary. But as soon as I walked into the building, I noticed that her whole demeanor changed. She normally gives me a smile, and she normally would greet me with a warm greeting. But this time she had her head down and she just basically pointed and said, hey, he's in his office. Go ahead and go in. So I knew something was wrong because as soon as I stepped into his office, it felt like the room was just dark. It felt like there was a cloud in the room. And I walked in being nervous. I walked in being cautious because I could tell something just felt off. Something felt wrong. Normally when I come into his presence, he normally gives me a hearty greeting. We normally dap each other up a little bit. But This time, he wasn't in a cheery mood. As a matter of fact, he was taking notes on a little pad on his desk, and he kept his head down, and he just pointed to tell me to take a seat at the conference table. And so I did. Now, by this time, I know something's really wrong because I can feel my whole body getting warm. I can feel my hands getting moist. My heart was racing. And so I said, yeah, something's going on. And he finally finished what he was writing, and he came and sit at the conference table with me. And this is the statement he made to me as he was getting ready to sit down. He says, Donnie, everybody has a friend. Everybody has a friend. He said, I know you're a good man. He says, I know you have a good heart. He says, but there are some people not worth saving. There are some people who you just can't rescue. He says, it got back to me that you had went and told our mutual friend, you had tried to fix some things. And he says, I'm telling you now, you can't fix this. This is something between me and him. And so I realized that I had overstepped my boundaries. I, went just a little bit too far trying to repair things. I told you, we have this innate ability. We're trying to fix everything and everyone. The good thing about my mentor was that he made that statement. And he asked me the question, do you understand? And I said, yes, sir. And then he said, let's go to lunch. And we went to lunch. And we never spoke about that situation ever again. See, that's what mentoring is about. It's not about throwing someone up under the table, but it is about correcting someone. It is about making sure someone understands exactly how you feel. And so he taught me something that day. Let me tell you what I learned from this conversation. Have you ever heard this game called the telephone game? It's where I tell you something and you're supposed to repeat exactly what I told you to the next person. And then it keeps going on and on and on. They keep repeating it. And by the time it gets back to me, it should be the same thing I told you. But how many of you know that by the time it gets back to me, it's totally different. It is totally different. And see, that's how things get messy. Now, it was a message, but the message got messy in the delivery. And that's why you have to be careful trying to fix everybody, because you might have a good heart and you're trying to fix something. You're trying to repair something. You're trying to resolve something. But the message you deliver can get messy, yes, in the delivery, because there's so many people attached to that message. Because that friend that you're telling, what you're telling has a friend. And so that friend is telling his friend what you said, and that friend is telling his friend what you said. And so it goes on and on, all around the room, all around the city. And so your message now becomes a messing. Yeah, that's what takes place. And this other circle of friends that my boss has, they're getting this message from this other friends. It's like two circles, if you will, of communication. So you got two circles coming together, talking about this message that's got messy. It's all because I tried to put my hands in it to fix it, to repair it. And some people are not worth being repaired. Some people just have to really, yes, you have to let them go. Some people are not worth your time, but you don't know it until you get in it. I told you what my boss did was so awesome. He said, let's go to lunch. He had put it behind him just that fast because he understood my heart. It was a message. It wasn't a mess, but it turned into a mess because of the message, because of who was involved on the other end. And that's why he was cutting him off, because he was getting messy. I should have listened to Apostle Matthew. Matthew says it very clearly that if a brother has an offense, an issue with another brother, he should go to that brother alone and tell that brother about his faults. That's how that should be handled. Not me or you getting involved in it because we think we can fix some stuff. No. We can mess some stuff up. Is what we can do. And that's what was taking place. I like to say it like this: loose lips sink ships. Loose lips can sink some ships. And you've been loose with your words, with your delivery. And you've sunk some things. Yeah, your mouth has put something out there and you couldn't put it back in. And so you messed some things up. I have a friend named Bobby who's from Nigeria. And Bobby has taught me a lot over the years. And one thing that he taught me specifically is that there are some things you shouldn't tell people, especially about your personal life, especially not at work. I was in a conversation at work one day, and I was making a statement about some assignment we had to accomplish. And then we finished the assignment or the conversation, and I started talking about some of the things, trying to be relatable with some personal things in my life. And I looked over at Bobby, and Bobby's eyes reminded me of my father looking at me. And it was that look that says, shut up. You're going too far. You're like a refrigerator. You're always open. I told you, loose lips sink ships. And so I shut it down. And it made me realize that it's like giving an auditor way too much information. When someone is auditing you, you give them exactly what they're asking for, nothing more, nothing less. And that's what we should be doing. We should not just open our mouths and just give so much information out to anybody and everybody. We should be wise. We should settle down, and we should realize that some things need to be kept to ourselves. You remember the parable in the Bible in the book of Luke where it talks about the splinter and the plank? The analogy, I'll call it, yeah, before you can take this splinter out of my eye, you need to take the plank out of your eye. That's what can happen when you get between a mess and a message. Is that if you're not careful, it just started off as a message, just a little splinter, but your delivery made it a mess, and that's a plank. I just pray that you remember that everybody has a friend. So the next time you're talking to somebody, just remember that everybody has a friend, and that friend has a friend, and that friend has a friend, and that friend has a friend, and it just goes on until the break of dawn. Just remember that. So the next time you try to fix something, remember, some things don't need to be fixed. They just need to vent. Be blessed, and have a great day.